Okay. Yes. So hello everyone. So my name is Anfal, and I'll be taking today's session on the basics of server-side JavaScript, and we will learn some functionalities with the data extension in this section. Yep, a little bit about myself. I'm an SFMC consultant. I'm a programmer by heart, and I do have a YouTube channel which is pretty new. It's called SFMC Simplified. I have few short videos there. You can please check it out in your free time. Then I've recently been more involved with the Ssjs and Interaction Studio works. So that is a little bit about me. And yeah, I reside in India, in Karnataka, uh, specifically on coastal side of Karnataka, called Udupi. So yep, that's about myself. So with that, let's just get started. Uh, I'll begin with a small introduction on Ssjs. And for that, let's see what this JS stands for, JavaScript. So JavaScript was mainly designed to be ran on front end. So JavaScript is a language which gets executed in front end, like the browsers we use, as in Chrome, Firefox, or Internet Explorer. So whenever we write any JavaScript code, that gets interpreted by or executed by the JavaScript engine. The Firefox has the JavaScript engine called as SpiderMonkey, and Chrome has a JavaScript engine called V8. Now, back in old days, we were limited to use the JavaScript only in the front end, and that was a limitation with the JavaScript. But then a very smart person came along, and he wrapped this JavaScript engine within a C++ program, and he called it as Node.js. So this enabled us to use JavaScript not only in the front end, we could also use it in the back end or in our servers. So just like Node.js, the Marketing Cloud has its own JavaScript library called Ssjs. So that is what the Ssjs stands for. It is the server-side JavaScript which runs in our Marketing Cloud. So with this introduction, let's quickly see the topics that we are going to cover today. First, we will see how to print hello world using the Ssjs, the first thing we do in most of the programming languages while learning. Then we will do a basic setup where you can run your Ssjs code using Google Drive. So this is very helpful for the beginners. Then we will cover some basic topics in JavaScript like variables, objects, object properties, and functions. So these are very basic stuff that we really need to understand the Ssjs. And yeah, I'm not going to cover a lot of things on JavaScript. For that, I would highly recommend you guys to watch some tutorials on that topic. Then let's just discuss a little bit about core and platform library. And then we will look into some basic Ssjs functions, which are for beginners. So like lookup rows, lookup ordered rows, or a retrieve function. We might not be able to cover all of these for today. There is another session planned, which would be the continuation of this one, which is on 7th of April. So if you haven't registered yet, register for that one as well. And this is the use case that we are going to cover today. So we need to pre-fill this is a cloud page preference page where if someone or your subscriber visits, his first name, last name, and email address should get pre-populated. So for that, we will get the subscriber key in URL parameter. If you don't know what URL parameter is, that is totally fine. We will come to that. So we will get subscriber key of a subscriber, and we will pre-fill his first name, last name, and email address in the cloud page. So this is the use case number one we will be covering today. And another use case, which we might not be able to cover fully for today, is we will be reading the email addresses from a data extension, which have not been verified or validated yet. And we will validate those using an API call. And then we will update the validation field for those email addresses. So there are some junk email addresses which gets filled in our web forms, and we wouldn't want these emails to get hard bounced for our IP reputation. So we should be avoiding the invalid email addresses, and for that we can do some kind of validation using the APIs. This use case also we will be covering, if not today, at least in the next session. So with that, let's get on with the hands-on sessions. For that, let me reshare the screen to the Firefox. Yeah. Can anyone please confirm if my screen is visible?
Yeah, we can see, Anpal.
Okay, cool. So I have, so this is the cloud page. If you're at the homepage of the marketing cloud, you just need to go to web page and go to cloud page and you'll be redirected here. And here you might have to create a collection. So I have created one for me. And within this one, I have one sample page, which is a landing page created already. So this one I've created using an empty template. For this one, you just have to click on landing page, give a name, and then let's see, if you give a name, you just need to select this blank template. That's all. So that's already created for me. I'll just open this up. Okay, now if I go to default section, first of all, is my font size too big or too small? Let me just zoom in a little bit. Okay. So I already have a code snippet dragged and dropped here. So it is, if you don't have it, you can drag and drop. And this is where we can do our coding. Okay. So first, as we said in the PPT, we will be seeing how we can print hello world in our Ssjs code. For that, we will just simply open a script tag. Let me just close this script tag as well. Okay. Now, if anything I write inside these script tags, any front-end developer would know that this would be considered as a front-end JavaScript code. So anything you write, any JavaScript code you write here would get executed by the browser. So for our code to be considered as server-side JavaScript, we need to give a property or an attribute here, which says runit equals server. So this will make marketing cloud servers understand that, okay, this is an Ssjs code and it has to be executed in the server end before the page comes to the front end. And inside this one, I'll just write a code here to print hello world. If you don't understand this code, it is totally fine. We will be explaining this word by word for you guys. So platform dot response dot write, and I'll say hello world. I can end this statement optionally with a semicolon, and I can also skip it. So for now, I'll just skip it just to show you that it can work without a semicolon. And I just will do done editing, and I'll just click on this schedule or publish button. I don't have to save it. The cloud page will automatically save if I say schedule and publish. So I can preview this code, but still I will just publish this change and open this URL. Let me just zoom in this for you. So we are able to print hello world. So this is a very simple JavaScript Ssjs code, actually, using which we can print any statement inside an HTML file. Now, we really don't know what this platform stands for, what this response is, and what this write is. Like, we don't even know what these things mean from a beginner's perspective. For that, let's just cover a few basic topics in JavaScript. And for that, let me just reshare my screen again. So I'll be showing you guys that in a second. Just give me a second. Okay, I'm sharing now. Yeah, here's a incognito Chrome window I have opened. So to try out any JavaScript code, you just need to right click here, click on inspect. And once inspect window is open, you just need to go to console tab. Let me just close this one. So I mentioned the JavaScript engine which Chrome uses, which is V8 JavaScript engine. And if you want to run any code with that V8 JavaScript engine, you can try out those code in here. So this is where you can practice your JavaScript, plain old JavaScript code. Again, this is only for JavaScript. You cannot run Ssjs code here. So let's first learn about the very basic thing in any programming language, which is variable. So a variable in JavaScript is declared using var keyword. So this is also optional. Even if I skip it, it is totally fine. Like it would work fine. But for syntactical purpose, I would recommend you guys to use this one. So after var keyword, you need to give a name to the variable. Let's say I want to store an age value. So this is a lot like an AMPScript variable. Var age, and then I will say equals to, and I'll give it a value. Let's say he's 12 years old. And here also I can end the statement using semicolon, or I can skip it. So this is how we declare a variable in JavaScript. Now, if I enter, the value 12 would be stored inside the variable age. Moving on, whenever I need to use this age, which is 12, I just need to use the variable name. So if I say age, as you can see, it is printing 12. And I can also use age variable to do some kind of arithmetic operations. Let's say I want to add 5 to his age. So I will say age plus 5. This will print the value 17. Now, if I print the value of age again, it will still remain 12. Here, I'm just printing the value. I'm not changing the age value. It still remains 12. Now, to change the value of the age, I just need to say age equals to age plus 5. Now, what this code does exactly is it retrieves the value for age, which is 12, and it kind of substitutes this value here. And then it will add it with 5, and that value would be 17, and that will get stored inside the age variable. So let me just say age, and now if I print the age variable, it will be 17. So this is about the number value. Likewise, we can store the string values or varchar values or text values within a variable, just like this, where let's say I want to store first name, and I will say his name is Adam. Now, if I print first name, it gives me Adam. Now, a very special thing in JavaScript is we can use these double quotes, or we can also use single quotes interchangeably. So even if I mention this Adam with single quote, it would be the same thing. Now, if I want to perform some kind of merging, let me just give another variable, which is last name. His last name is just A. And let's say if I do first name plus last name. So as we know that we cannot perform arithmetic operations on string values, Adam, and in that situation, what this plus would do is it will just concatenate those values or merge these two values. So it's just printing Adam A. Let's say if I want a white space in between these values, I will just say add first name plus a white space plus last name. So this is how I can get like merge string values. And I won't go any more deeper about variables. So this is all that you would mostly need, at least for this session. Any more details you would require for the variable in JavaScript, please look out for any YouTube tutorials, or any, like there are some great contents on JavaScript topic. Now we know how we can store a single value. Let's now look at how we can store a little bit complicated value. And for that, a little bit complex value, for that to store in JavaScript, we use something called as an object. An object in JavaScript is very similar to an object in real world. So I usually take the example of a person. So a person has a properties like first name, last name, his age, he has a gender, he has an email address, let's say. So to store all these variables for a single person, we would use something called as an object in JavaScript. And how we create an object is we can use the same var keyword here. And again, the object name we need to mention. So I'll name this object as person1. And then I'll say equals. Now I need to store multiple values here, right? So for that, in JavaScript, we enclose these values within the flower bracket or flower braces. And inside this one, let's say I want to store first name of this person. So I'll just say first name, colon, and his name is Adam. He has an age. I'll say age equals 12. He has a gender colon male. And let's say our property name has a white space in it. Like these don't have, like these are the single words, right? Let's say it has a white space. We can definitely use underscore, but in case if we need to use white space, then we can mention property name also within double quotes. So let's say I want to say email address is adam@test.com. Okay. So this is how an object would look like in the JavaScript. JavaScript objects are enclosed within the flower bracket, and there are comma separated key value pairs, and the key value pairs are separated by colon. So first name is Adam, like this person's first name is Adam, this person's age is 12, this person's gender is male, and this person's email address is adam@test.com. Now let me just, okay, there is an error. Invalid shorthand property initializer. Just check. Okay, yeah, here there was a mistake. Now I have stored all these values inside the person1. How do I access these properties? There are two ways. One is dot notation. So if I say person1, the Chrome kind of highlights this object here. So if I say person1 dot, let's say I want to read his first name. It gives me the first name of this person. Let's say I want to read his age. It gives me the age of that person. But there is a limitation with the dotted notation. I cannot access these kind of properties which has the white space in it. So let me just try it. So if I say email address, these two things would be considered a separate entity because we have white space in here. So this would give me an error. In this kind of situation, we need to go with the second notation to access the property, which is the square bracket. So within the square bracket, if I mention email address, this is how I can read using the square bracket notation. So same notation can be used to read the properties without the white space as well. And yep, this is all about the properties of the person. There is another thing. Beside the properties of an object in JavaScript, the objects can also have functions. So coming to our real world person example. So the person has the properties like first name, age, gender, etc. Right? A person can also do some tasks. For example, he can talk, he can walk, he can go to market, buy you groceries and get back to home. So these are all the functions that a person can do. Just like that, JavaScript objects also have some functions in it. So how do we differentiate a function from a property is? So I won't be showing you guys how we can declare function or how we can create our own function. That would be like too much for 1 hour session we have here. But the person, so how we differentiate function from a property is the function. So let's say this person has a function called walk, would have this opening and closing parentheses. So whenever anything has this opening and closing parentheses, that just means that it's a function and it will do some kind of task. So that is all about the object in JavaScript. And this is all that we would need from JavaScript in this session. So with this covered, let me just share a last slide from my deck. So object in JavaScript as a single record in data extension. Let me just quickly show you guys a data extension. So this is a normal data extension, right? So if you observe this single record, the single first record, this very much looks like the object which we discussed just now. So we can consider this as an object, let's say a person object. This person has the property first name. He also has last name. He also has email address, gender, and age. And this is exactly how we would be accessing a single row from a data extension. So you can imagine that a single row in a data extension is like an object in JavaScript. So this is how we can store a single row, but then again, we have multiple rows here. And for that, there is another concept called array of objects, which we will cover in the next session. So for now, just knowing what a single object is and this knowing this correlation between object and single row in data extension is enough for today. Okay. Now with this covered, let me share the. Let's just come back to the code here, our Ssjs code. Now, looking at this platform, we can identify that this platform is on left side of this dot notation. That means it must be an object, right? So platform actually is an object from Ssjs. So this is predefined object, like we don't have to declare it or anything. It comes predefined. And if you see on right side, response is also on left side of the dot notation. That must mean that this also is an object. So it simply means that an object can also have a sub object. So platform here is the main object and it has a sub object. And then comes the right. Right has this opening and closing parentheses. That means it must be a function. And in this function, as we mentioned before, function is something that does some task. And this function, what it does is it prints this value onto our HTML file. So that is what this statement stands for. Okay. Now with this covered, let me just quickly show you guys how we can do our basic setup. So this is mainly for beginners and like learners who want to try Ssjs code. Now the limitation here is each time, let's say if you want to practice Ssjs code and if you make any changes here, and if you click on this schedule, like you need to click on this schedule publish, wait few seconds here, and yeah, now I have to publish, and now I have to go here and refresh. So sometimes this publishing might take some time. Sometimes there might be some caching issues. Like sometimes you might have to clear the cache of this page. For those reasons, if you're practicing in Ssjs, using Ssjs, this setup would really help for you guys. So this is very quick setup. Let me just guide you through this. So first thing you would need is to create a .html file. Create this .html file, an empty .html file would work, and upload it in your Google Drive location. Now, once you upload it, I can just right click, open with, and click on text editor. Now this would show me the content of this file. So let me just go back here and copy this code from our cloud page and paste it here. And let me just save this file. Now, after making any changes here, like after making this change, we will go back to the cloud page, right click on this file again and click on share. Now, once we click on share, you would have to change this permission from restricted to anyone with the link. So once you do this, copy this link and click on done. Now just go back to the cloud page and I'll just remove everything and paste the HTML which we have copied. Just zoom in a little bit. So here we need to we just need the ID of this file which we just copied, and the ID you will get after this d/, and here is our ID that we would need. So the ID ends at this slash. So I'll just double click this ID, copy this one and delete everything. I'll just keep the ID for now. And in the next line, let me just get an AMPScript code. So I'll just give you the this one-line AMPScript code. I can paste it in the chat at the end. Now just copy this ID we had copied and replace it with this ID. What this piece of AMPScript line does is it first downloads our cloud page, like the HTML file that we have. So it will download it using the HTTP GET function, and then it will treat it as a content, as in it will execute that code. Like it won't just print it. Instead, it will execute that code. So that's what's happening here. And if I click on done editing and do schedule publish, just last publish for today. Now, let me just go back to the cloud, the editor, and I'll say hello world from Google Drive. Let me just save this, and I'll go back here and refresh the page. Now it says hello Google Drive. I don't have to publish the page again and again anymore. If I, let's say, I make some more change, I can immediately go back and refresh, and immediately I'll get the change here. So this is very good for beginners to learn. But then again, once you do these kind of practice, make sure to unpublish or delete these pages. Since this HTML file is openly available, like if they get the link, they can access this file and they will see the exact script that is running from Ssjs. And if they get access to this file, they can access anything within your marketing cloud using Ssjs. So be very careful while using these. It's only for practice purpose. Don't use it in production instance or anything. So yeah, with that, we have our setup ready. And let's just explore some more useful Ssjs functionalities. Okay. Now we know that we can print using the write function using this way. There is another way using core library. So the thing is, there are two libraries which can write within, write or print anything on our HTML file. One is using platform library function. Another one is using core library function. So this is done using platform library function because here we have platform object, and anything, any functions which comes after this one is with the platform library functions. The other method or other function. So whenever I say method, it means function. Sorry. So there's another function with the core library, and that function is simply write. So I'll just say from core library. But the catch with this function is the core library function is we need to load the core library before using any of its function. So for that, we will say platform.load core and one. So what this again is, platform is an object, load is its function because it has opening and closing parentheses. Here they're saying that load the core library where the version, the latest version which starts with 1. So let's say we have the latest version 1.5, it will load the core library version 1.5. But in future, if you get, let's say, latest version, which is 1.6, it will load that version. So just to avoid any confusion, just use this line of code and it will work just fine. So that is the catch with the core library function. So let's save this code. But before this, saving this code, since this print is happening on an HTML file, this is an HTML file, right? For line break, we would have to use the BR tag. So BR tag in HTML is used for line break. So if I just save this change and go back, we're getting from core library message here after we print our first message. So now we have the same function which does exactly the same task. So which one should we go for? I would recommend, like highly recommend you guys to stick with the platform library function if you can do any task using platform library function. So, but there are some functions which exclusively is only in core library function. In that situation, definitely you would have to go with the core library functions. Okay, and in today's or in next session as well, we will cover both cover few functions from platform library and also few from core library. Okay, now this is another way that we can print, and there is another very useful way to print in our HTML, and that is the one which is kind of like most oftenly used. So that method is to store any value in Ssjs code into an AMPScript variable, and then use that AMPScript variable in our HTML code. So just to let you guys know, this is a script tag, but this entire file is a .html file. So it can have any other tags as well outside the script tag. So let's say I want h1, give me a second. So I can have an h1 tag here, and I can have any message. I'll just say message. If I save, I'll go back, refresh. It will print the message in h1 tag. So this is an HTML file where I can print anything. And yeah, the other very useful way where we can print any value from Ssjs is to first store it in AMPScript variable, and then using AMPScript tag, like this one-liner code we have right in AMPScript, where we say percentage equals v, and inside this one we say @variable name. So if we do anything like this, you guys must have used this notation in AMPScript. We can print anything inside this variable onto our HTML. But for now, yeah, this variable name doesn't have any value, right? So let's assign a value to it inside our script tag, and let's make this variable a little bit meaningful. So let's say I want to print subscriber key. So I will first initialize a Ssjs variable. So since it is starting with the var and it's inside the script tag, it would be an Ssjs variable here. So where I will say subscriber key, I'll just say sub key equals to A101. Okay, and then I have the Ssjs variable. Now I need to assign it to this variable, AMPScript variable. So I'll just say AMP name or AMP variable name. So I need to store this sub key into this variable. And for that, we do have a platform function called platform dot variable dot set value. And in this one, first we need to mention the AMPScript variable name. We can also optionally mention this @, but we can also skip it. And then we need to pass the value. The value is A101, which is inside the subscriber key variable. So I'll just pass the subscriber key variable. Now what's happening here is A101 is the value which is getting stored in this Ssjs variable. And then this Ssjs variable's value is getting stored inside the AMPScript variable. And then outside this script tag, we're printing that AMPScript variable. Okay. Now let me just save this change, go back and refresh. This printing A101, and that is happening inside the H1 tag, right? Now, here's another interesting thing. We can improve on this one. So let's say instead of printing the subscriber key, I want to print the email address who has this subscriber key A101. Let me just go here and show you a data extension which I have ready. Okay, just zoom in a little bit. This data extension is a simple D101, and it has our typical fields like subscriber key, first name, last name, email address, age, gender. Let's ignore this field for now. It is for use case number 2. Now I have the subscriber key A101, A102, A103 and so on. And then email addresses, Adam, Eve, Max, and Danny. Let's say I have the subscriber key A101 right now. I want to read his email address, adam@gmail.com, from this data extension. Okay. For that, let's just go to the official Ssjs library. For that, you just need to search Ssjs SFMC in the Google. Click on the first link you get. Okay, now let me just zoom in. Now here, inside this folder, you will have almost all the syntax for any Ssjs functions we have. So just expand the first option here, server-side JavaScript syntax guide, and scroll down and go to the platform function. And inside this one, click on the data extension functions. Expand this one. And here we can see that we have a lookup function create like here. And it says that it can retrieve a single field. And that is what we want in this situation. We just want to read email address, a single field with a specific condition from a data extension. Okay. So this lookup is a function because it has open parentheses and closing parentheses, and it can take 4 parameters, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the first parameter is this one, which is going to be string or text, and it is required. And that is going to be the name of the data extension. And then the second parameter is going to be the field which we want to read. In this situation, it is email address that we want to read. And then we also have the third parameter and fourth parameter. So third and fourth parameter is used for condition. So you can understand this one better with an example. So here we have a sample code which says it is reading phone number. So we are storing any value inside a variable called phone number. And here it is reading from the customer data extension, and it is reading the phone number field, phone field. That's why we are storing it in a phone number variable. Where, so in SQL, we have where clause, right? Where we say subscriber key is this value. So wherever the subscriber key value is this, retrieve me this field from this data extension. So that is what this function means. Now let me just copy this code here. Okay, I'll just copy it like this and go here. And I'll put it in the third line. Okay, so in our situation, we want to read the email address. So let me just change the variable name to email address, and platform function lookup would remain the same. And this is going to be our data extension name. So let me just get the data extension name here, simple D101. And the field we want to read is email address. So that has to be same exact as this one. I'll just copy paste this one. And the second, the third and fourth variables are for condition. So the condition here is where subscriber key is this value. So this value has to be A101. So we can hard code it here, but we already have stored this value inside sub key variable. So let me just copy this code variable name here and paste it. So here, this will read from the data extension. This will read email address as for us, and it will look for the subscriber key A101, and it will store the email address in this variable. Now I'll just replace this. So I was assigning sub key into AMPScript variable name. Now let me just copy this line of code, and we will have another variable name called email address. I'll just keep the name same. We can keep it same to avoid any confusion. And yeah, this is how it is going to look like. Maybe just to avoid a confusion, I'll just add amp email address amp. So this is the AMPScript variable, and this is the Ssjs code variable. And I will do the same thing here. Inside h1 tag, I will print this value, and just for the line space, I will give br tag at the end so that this h1 will get printed in the next line. Just save this code, go back and refresh. It is printing Adam from A101. Let me just change the variable, the value A102. So it should give me A102 Eve's email address, which is invalid123@gmail.com. Okay. So let me just save this change and go back and refresh. So it is giving me Eve right now. Now, the limitation, kind of a limitation here is that each time I need to come here and change the variable name and go back, refresh, right? Let's say I want to keep this value dynamic. Dynamic as in, I'm sorry if this is very small for you guys. I'll just copy this URL for this page and I'll bring it here in the editor. So let's say we have this URL here and I want to pass subscriber key here. So we all know that we can pass URL parameters using the question mark variable, question mark symbol. So I'll say question mark. I'll be passing the subscriber key here equals to A101. Just say A103. So if I do something like this in the cloud page, so I'll just put this at the end of the URL. I want this page to read A103. Okay. So right now we haven't implemented this one. So instead of using the hard-coded value, I want it to read it from the URL parameter. So for that, we have a platform function. So instead of hard coding this one, I'll remove this one. So the platform function for this one is platform dot function, I guess. No, it is platform dot get string query parameter, and here I need to pass this value. So this key value, sub key. So let me just remove this line. So what this will do is this will read the subscriber key from the URL itself, and then it will read the email address for that same person, same subscriber key, and it will print it. Okay, let me just save this code, go back, and now I have A103 here. If I refresh the page, it should read A103. Oh yeah, it is giving me another platform dot request dot get string query. One second. Sorry, this is get query string parameter. My bad. Query string parameter. Okay. This thing means that there is something wrong in our Ssjs, and there is a better way to handle this one using the try catch block. So I'll discuss that topic in the next session as well. So if I refresh now, it should work. See, A103, and it is reading the mac@email.gmail.com. Let's say I want to read it for A105. I'll just go back to the page, change the sub key value in the URL itself, and it is printing A105 and done. So with these topics covered, we are finally ready to do our use case number 1. So for that, I have created a simple, plain HTML preference page. So this is the page which I have created. So I'll just open it up and just show you guys the code. It's very simple actually. Okay. Now if I'll just go to this code view mode. And here, if you see, I'll just copy this code into the notepad and show you. This editor is really small, or maybe I can use this editor. Yeah. Just put it here. So this is the entire HTML code for this cloud page I have created. I'll just show you guys the important stuff. But before that, let me just schedule publish this page. Publish and open this page. It's way too zoomed in. Okay. So this is the preference page I have. Here, the use case is the URL parameter will have the subscriber key, which we just the way previously we had. So I have passed the subscriber key A101 here. And this first name, last name, and email address fields should get pre-filled. So whenever anyone visits this page with a subscriber key in the URL parameter, the first name, last name, and email address should automatically get loaded. But right now it is not working because we don't have the code in place. And let me just show you the important stuff here. The important things are the input fields. So this first name input text box is coming from this input text, the input tag, and the last name is coming from here, and the email address is coming from here. And yeah, these are the points of interest for us. And this is where we want to pre-fill those information. Okay. With this, let me just grab this script tag, and I'll be putting my script tag inside the head tag. I think you can place it anywhere. Just to be safe, I'll place it at the topmost location. And here, our logic is going to remain the same. I'm reading the subscriber key from the get query parameter. Like I'll be reading the subscriber key from the URL parameters. And then I'm reading the email address, and then I'm storing it into an AMPScript variable. So we won't need the subscriber key variable anymore. So I'll just remove this line of code. And so here we have read only for email address. Likewise, we need to read first name and last name. So for that, I'll just copy this code 2 more times. So here I'm reading the first name. So first name is the variable name, and the field name is going to change to first name. So let me just to be safe, I'll copy it from the data extension itself. First name, and here the AMPScript may this statement to get the value into the AMPScript variable will also change. So I will say first name AMP, and then for last name, grab the last name. Okay, and this is going to be the last name AMPScript variable and last name AMPScript variable. Now, instead of printing, so this is all the Ssjs we would need here. So instead of printing it inside the h1 tag, so we don't have this AMPScript variable anyways. So instead of printing this email address inside the h1 tag, I'll just grab this AMPScript code and remove this h1 tag. And I will go down to the input box, the input text boxes, and this is where we can give a default value to our text fields. So I'll say value equals to, and within double quotes, I'll say, so this is for first name. I'll say first name. And I'll copy this line of code for last name, for email address. So the last name is going to be the last name, AMPScript variable name, and this is going to be email address. Okay, let me just grab this entire code. So we don't have the code which we had previously here up here. I'll just grab this entire code and paste it in the cloud page and schedule. Publish. Now, if I go back here, I have the subscriber key already mentioned as A101. Let me just refresh. Here you can see that Adam A and Adam@gmail.com is getting pre-filled. So let me just change the value to A103 just to see if it is working. See, it is picking Mac M and Mac@gmail.com, which is the exact value for A103. So this is the use case 1 covered. So I only have 10 minutes remaining. I think we will end this session here itself. The next session is going to be on 7th of April, and we will continue some of the topics which we said we will cover in the next one. Yeah. So I'll be answering some of the.
Yeah, thanks much, Anfal. So as you have seen, this session covers the very basics of the Ssjs and JavaScript. This is as a primer for the implementation sessions that we are coming up next. So it's all good to know about the ins and outs of the Ssjs. So we have a couple of sessions planned. So the first session was done with Elliot, and this is the second session. The next session is going to be on 7th around the same time, 8:30 p.m. IST. So please join them. And due to time constraints, we need to end this session. And Anfal would be able to take a few questions right now, and after this session, you have an opportunity to get your questions answered. That is on the Slack channel. I have posted the link to the Slack channel, and if you're already part of it, you can post your questions there. And I also posted the link to join that. Please join if you haven't already. And any questions related to this session or any other questions, please post them so we can check it at a later point of time and address them. And thanks very much, Anfal. This is so detailed and it's easily understandable. Thanks for putting this in a good format, so even a beginner can understand it nicely. I see a couple of questions earlier. Let me go back. Do we have any limitation with respect to publishing? So when you are writing the code within the cloud page itself without using the Google Drive, so if one has to write the code within the cloud page itself, so is there any limitation with that?
Yep, the limitation there is, so whenever you usually work on cloud page, you would be doing, like, you won't be doing that much of change. But while learning Ssjs, you would definitely do some change, go refresh. For that purpose, like, publishing will take few seconds to publish, right? That is the first reason. The second reason is, this is the thing which I faced in my Chrome browser. That's why I was using Firefox today. The thing is, it takes few minutes for any change to get reflected after publishing. So that problem is not going to be there if you use this method. And yeah, this is only for the learning purpose, and that's all.
Awesome. Thanks, Anpal. I'm looking for any other questions. So anybody has any questions, please post them in the chat window. So I think we're good for now. So as I mentioned, we have the Slack channel for further collaboration. So any questions that are related to this session or any other questions related to the Marketing Cloud, please feel free to post your questions there and we can address them at a later point of time. And in the next session, Anfal is going to cover the next use case, right, Anfal? Next use case, and also the other functions that are available in the Ssjs. And we have one other question. Are core functions less efficient compared to platform functions?
So the core library functions, first thing is that you need to load it. Like, that load will takes a little bit of runtime from the server end. And also there is a little bit of interpretation going on. So that is a little bit detailed for this session. But yeah, overall core library functions are a little bit slower than platform library functions.
Perfect. So I think that is all for today. We can wrap this up. And yeah, thanks once again, Anfal and Sharath. So run a client. Yeah, so we can wrap this up. Thank you everyone for joining, and let's catch up next on the 7th, 8:30 p.m., 11 a.m. Eastern. And we will be posting this recording on the YouTube channel, Trailblazing Together. Have a good one. Take care.
Yeah.